everyone. I'm John Evans. Welcome to another episode of One-on-One. Ed McMahon has held just about every rank you can hold inside the New Hanover County Sheriff's Office, and he's risen all the way to become the elected sheriff, not just once but twice in New Hanover County. You may not know, though, that his law enforcement career, which is coming up now on 30 years, didn't start in this county. As a matter of fact, law enforcement wasn't even Ed McMahon's first job right out of school. Just one of the issues I spoke to the elected sheriff about during our conversation. A lot of people think you grew up here, but you were actually born in Pennsylvania.
Yeah, I was born right outside of Levittown, Bristol. I was born at Bristol, Pennsylvania.
What was it like growing up there?
Well, we were very young, and we moved from there to Connecticut, outside of Hartford, Connecticut. So that's kind of where I first remember growing up, Connecticut, and then we moved to Massachusetts.
And that's where you graduated high school, right?
Yeah, I went from I think it was about fourth grade, and ended up graduating high school from Palmer, Massachusetts.
You go back there very often to visit people? Still have friends back there?
No, well, I've got some friends back there, but not really. The families all moved away. I went about a year ago. I went to some training outside of Boston, and I drove into Palmer then, kind of reminisced to the childhood days, but hadn't been there for a long time. So.
Now, what did you do between the time that you graduated high school and then went into becoming a state trooper in Vermont? Because that was your first law enforcement job, right?
Yes, 1988 is when I became a Vermont state trooper.
What did you do before that?
I kind of did odd jobs here and there.
Right.
I'd go to college for a semester here, and just to kind of wander around. I did some landscaping work. Probably my first real serious job is I actually ran a motel in Lake George, New York. Yeah, kind of managed it with my father, mother, and when we first got married in 1982, I took Tina from here up to Lake George, upstate New York, and we worked in a hotel.
And you realized after that wasn't for you?
Well, yeah, we were in that for a little while, and then a friend of mine was starting a carpet business, and he was a high school buddy, and he lived in Massachusetts and wanted to come up into the upstate New York area. So he started a carpet business, and that was like my really first serious job. He kind of trained me how to be the manager of the store, and worked in there for a number of years. And I'll never forget, I was 28 years old, had 2 children, and Tina, my wife, looked at me. She goes, "What do you want to do when you grow up?" Just kind of trying to knock some sense into me.
Think prod you a little bit?
Yes, just a little. And that's what I said. I'd like to be in law enforcement. I'd like to be a state trooper.
Why? What did you have a love for that growing up? Was there an incident that pushed you toward that?
I'd always liked different PI shows, Rockford Files, and just silly stuff like that. And growing up, I just thought it would really be neat to be a detective. I just, in the back of my mind, I'd watch detective shows, Columbo, and those way back, those shows. I said, that would be neat to do something like that. So as I got older, I realized I couldn't just become a detective. And you see the troopers around the highways, and that looked like a really cool job. So I told her, I said, I'd like to be a trooper.
So why Vermont?
Well, once, Tina being the supportive wife, even though she told me later, she's like, there's no way he can be a cop. There's just no way. He's too nice.
Well, she was putting up with you back then. Another dream, but it worked, though, this time, right?
It did. So one night, we're watching television, and on the news, we were in upstate New York, probably an hour from Rutland, so pretty close to Vermont. And advertisement came on for Vermont state troopers. So Tina came and told me, she goes, there you go. There's your shot. Go ahead. And I was like, no. She said, you got to do it. You said you want to do it. So she prodded me, and they were hiring 22 people. There were over 500 applicants.
Wow.
And I'm 28 years old now. A father of 2 in another state. Ended up just missing. I think I was like number 24, tied with a couple other people, and they only taken 22. And so I kept calling the recruiter. Because my best friend, I was working for him, and he knew what I wanted to do. He was like, hey, if you get it, you can give me 1 day notice. That's okay, because I know how much it means to you.
Mm-hmm.
I kept calling him. And one day he called me. He said, you know what? I think it was maybe 2 weeks before the academy started. He said, we've just had a cancellation. Something happened. Even though you're not next, you have called me every other day.
Right.
So I'm offering you the position if you want it. So, of course, Tina said,
sure.
Yeah, go ahead. And 2 weeks later, I was in a live-in academy an hour and a half from home.
Right.
Left her with two babies.
Wow. Now, what was that like? Was that more or less than what you thought it was going to be, or much different than you thought it was going to be?
It was more. It was really tough. Before we started, it was a live-in academy in Vermont that everybody, all law enforcement went to this academy. But before the state police sent you, you had to do 3 weeks or so of kind of like a boot camp.
Mm-hmm.
And we went to a military facility, and this was late 80s. So I don't have to tell you the kind of things that we were put through.
Mm-hmm.
They tried to break us.
Right, sure.
And it almost did. I thought, I'm too old for this kind of stuff.
Did you come close at some point in time?
I did.
Yeah.
I remember sitting down on Friday night, if everything was good, we could go home.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'd get home on Friday night late, and the kids were there, and Tina.
Right.
I remember just sitting on the couch. The kids were in bed, and I said, I don't think I can do it. And Tina was like, oh, no. You started this thing.
Right.
You're going to finish it. So she gave me some tough love. And the kind of the weakness in me turned into a tenacity to, I'm not going to let him beat me. I'm going to do this.
Mm-hmm.
And then after that first 3-4 weeks, we went to the regular live-in police academy. So other than being away from the family, now it was more academic, and the PT and stuff there was nothing compared to what the state police had put me through.
So your law enforcement career started. You're a trooper. At any point in time, early on there, did it get to the point where you were scared or anxious about whether, I can imagine on a daily basis, and I've got the greatest respect for law enforcement, always have, but I can imagine at some point in time there must be some kind of anxiety or a fear of the unknown, maybe the first couple of times you're out there by yourself.
There was. Now, of course, in the state police, I was with a training officer for probably about 3 months.
Okay.
And I just, they called us little green things. It was tough. It was a tough culture.
Right.
So they really mentored you and got you ready for it.
Mm-hmm.
I think it was tougher on Tina at that point, because now all of a sudden, she never thought I'd make it. Now all of a sudden, I've made it, and, she's got all those same things about law enforcement. So, back then we didn't have cell phones.
Sure.
We didn't have all that stuff. So what she did, she got a scanner, and she would call the dispatchers. We were like in a house, how the troopers are, and we were out of the barracks. So she got friends with the dispatchers, so she could call them. I didn't know this, and check on me.
Right.
So she would do that throughout the evenings. Nights were tough for her when I worked nights.
Sure.
And I think for me, I'll never forget my first night shift. First night shift I've ever worked. And I'm with some training officer. I'm not even driving. I'm sitting in the passenger seat. And there's a fight call. And we're state police, you're not real close to each other. Mm-hmm. And one of the rookies that was in my class with me was with their training officer, and they were calling for help with a big fight. So we're flying down the interstate. And I remember in the corner of my eye seeing something. A deer jumped off of one of the rocks, came right through, and totaled the car. Wow. And I don't know what happened. It should have killed me. I think my training officer might have reached over and grabbed me, because the deer came right through the passenger side. And he had to pull me out of his side.
Wow.
So that was kind of an eye-opener, like, wow, what have I got myself into?
Yeah.
But, there were times when that was a real rough area that we were in, so we did a lot of hands-on. So it was great training for me.
And then you came back to New Hanover County. Why the move to come to New Hanover County then?
So you've got the Southern Belle, Tina, who has 3 or 4 generations in Wilmington.
Right.
And she is now 7 miles from the Canadian border on Lake Champlain. I don't have to tell you.
With winters.
30, 40 below.
Right.
She's not going outside. And she was miserable. We had 2 small, babies now. and she just wanted to go home. She
Right.
wanted to come back to Wilmington, and at that point, I started looking. And her parents were here, so we would come visit all the time. And I loved Wilmington, loved
Right.
North Carolina, loved the weather, loved the ocean, and so it just it worked out that there was a Wednesday we were coming back from church, and we were going down College Road, and right there by Maryville. We looked in a parking lot, and we were leaving like that Friday or Saturday, headed back. And I told Tina, I'm at a point now, it's been 3 years, I'm getting ready to become a senior trooper. We're just going to put it behind us, and we'll just visit, and when I retire, we'll move back here. And she was kind of figuring, okay, that's the reality.
Yeah, becoming convinced it's going to have to be
Yeah.
that way.
I looked over in the parking lot, I saw a trooper and a deputy car. And of course, in the north, the deputies, they don't do anything. But I saw the trooper. It's like, So we pulled into the parking lot. The deputy ended up being a friend of mine. And as I talked to the two of them, for whatever reason, I kind of was attracted towards the deputy. And we started talking. I said, wow, you guys, you do all this stuff as a deputy sheriff?
Yeah, more up in the Northeast, more of it is just courtroom security and don't do as much as a sheriff's deputy in your department does here.
We did. The troopers did
Right.
all the 911, all that kind of stuff. The troopers did it. You didn't really see a deputy or a sheriff.
Right.
So it was very interesting. And he got me in touch with, I can't even remember who it was now, ended up they were going through the hiring process. And from that Wednesday night till that Saturday when we left, I got to meet with Sheriff McQueen. I took a polygraph. I think I went before a review board. All that stuff just fell, and the Lord just had it worked out perfect for me.
Yeah.
And then off I went.
Yeah. So then you come down here and become a deputy and start with the sheriff's office,
Yes.
and then you basically held every office in the sheriff's department here. I mean, you have more name tags, I believe, than anybody else in the New Hanover County Sheriff's Office.
I was blessed. I got to do a lot of different things.
Yeah.
Never, ever, ever thought or even had the desire to be the sheriff. Every time I got a promotion, I was like, wow, I don't ever want to be anything more. I'm sergeant. Then now I'm a lieutenant. And then I was a captain. I couldn't believe it. I said, I'll stay right here, and it'll be great.
Was there any level that was more fulfilling than any others? I know you were patrol. I know you did a lot of different things, but I mean, I know that as you move up, you have to experience a lot of these things. But was there any others that were more fulfilling? Any levels, any office that you held?
I think when I look back, when I got to get into the initially, I went into the SROs, the school resource officers, and we were only in Laney. It was really just kind of beginning for us as an official SRO. And I really liked that. It was neat dealing with the kids and talking to them and going to the football games. It made you feel kind of young again, basketball games. So I really enjoyed that. I didn't do that real long. And then when I got back in, I got into the SAFE unit, the traffic unit. And that was kind of home to me because that's what I had done as a trooper. So very, very fulfilling, a lot of fun. Got to ride the motorcycle. I had to take home fancy car, had the radar, all the training.
Living the law enforcement life, as it were.
Yeah, when you think about it, it's like you're out there stopping cars, you're working the drunks. So that was fun. Get to travel some, go to funerals. We get to go to D.C. with the motorcycles. But I think most fulfilling, other than being the sheriff, was when I was a detective.
And why is that?
You really got to help people, seeing them as the victims and in really horrible times, and then being able to try to figure out what happened, who did this, and then match wits with the bad guys, and then you find that one piece. Now, we didn't have all the technology. When we had to look at pawn shops, we physically went to the pawn shop and got thousands of names of people. And I remember at night, I'd sit home at night looking through for some stolen property of somebody. And when you'd find that one piece of evidence, we'd be able to solve a case and get somebody's stuff back for them. And then moving in as I got a little more advanced, actually having a homicide and being able to figure out who had done it, charge them, go to court, sit beside the family. Those are things that they haunt you, but they're also so fulfilling.
Yeah,
to do that.
Reality TV nowadays really takes us in and takes us in a lot more than ever before. Yeah. But you mentioned the Columbos, the Magnum PIs, and all these other kind of things.
Yeah.
Is there any show or is there anything on TV that really paints the picture of an investigation or law enforcement that was any better than any others?
I think I've only watched it once or twice, but it's the on Tom Selleck. It's the one where he's the commissioner.
Okay.
What's the name?
Yeah, I know the one you're the Blues.
Yeah,
I know the one you're talking about.
That I watched it a couple times, and I've had people tell me that seems kind of closer to maybe realistic.
Mm-hmm.
The CSI shows and everything.
They solve it in an hour.
It just doesn't work like that.
Right.
And now, today, we're very specialized.
Mm-hmm.
You've got your crime scene people. That's all they do. You've got your detectives. That's what they do. And now are you a detective? Are you property crimes? Are you violent crimes? And we try to really, which is good in one sense because the person's really getting very good at what they do.
Mm-hmm.
So.
It seems to me like the first time politics really entered your career here was after Sheriff Sid Causey resigned.
Yes.
And I think you had to actually kind of push for the job because there were a couple of others who wanted the job at the same time.
Yes.
Was that the first time? Is that a correct assumption that that's the first time really that politics came into your career with law enforcement?
It really was. Throughout your career, you have people say, "Hey, you ought to run for sheriff someday. You ought to," and I'm like, "No, please don't even say you're going to get me fired. Just kind of keep on going." But I was a captain in our judicial. We called it course back then. But I was a captain over there, thinking, "This is where I'm going to be. I love it. I'm going to be here the rest of my career." And we started hearing some things that the one major was going to retire, and then now all of a sudden the chief deputy Tom Parker is going to retire, and the sheriff called a staff meeting of all his senior staff. So we all went over there, and he and Chief Parker came in, sat down, and said, I don't know if I forget, Sheriff Causey said, "The chief and I are going to go. We're going to have lunch. We want all of you to decide who you think should be the next chief deputy, keeping in mind my age and that, eventually I'm going to be retiring." Not telling us when or anything. We're just saying, hey, that's coming up, and I don't want it to be just the next senior person. I want it to be the person that you all think could be the next sheriff.
Mm-hmm.
And they walked out, and we all just sat there. Wow. So that was a lot.
Yeah.
And we started talking, and before I knew it, I said, "I'll do it." And we went back and forth, and people were like, "Well, okay." And everybody in that room but one person. And it was nothing against that person because they just wanted to be sheriff.
Sure,
and
yeah.
we were all like, okay, great.
Right.
And we all said, I remember saying that day, listen, whoever the staff decides, I'm 100% behind it.
Mm-hmm.
I'm willing to step up and do it, I think.
Right.
I had no clue what it involved.
Yeah.
But anyway, I might not, I've been like, woo. But anyway, I said, yeah, I'll do it. And so everybody kind of voted, and everybody but one. And that one came around too, because they were like, okay, well, I wanted it, but I'm going to, if everybody else said that, then fine, I'm good with that. And we called the sheriff back, and we're sitting there, and right then and right there, the sheriff made me chief deputy.
Yeah.
Just, boom.
Wow.
Mind blowing.
Didn't start the morning that way and ended up that way, right?
That's right. Uh-huh.
And then he decides to step down, and you have to then go in front of the Democratic leadership in the county and really kind of push yourself, right?
Yes. I remember when I became chief deputy, and one day, somehow I found out how political it was. Mm-hmm. That you have to be the same political party as the sheriff if that sheriff may want to recommend you to take his place. And I was like, really? That was the first time it really dawned on me.
Right.
Well, this is political.
Yeah.
So still being very naive.
Right.
I remember talking to my father, my father-in-law, my pastor, and they were all like, none of us are political. It's a party.
Right.
That's not what makes you up. You are who you are. Just don't change who you are.
Right.
And so I switched over.
Right.
Not knowing that, 2 years later, Sheriff Causey came to me one, I think it was like a Thursday or a Friday, said, look, I think it's time. I want you to come to this budget meeting on Monday. which the sheriff handled the budget. He was a master at the budget.
Mm-hmm.
And, he would teach me, but he took care of it. And he told me, I want you to come to the budget meeting with the manager. And I was kind of surprised. Well, sure, Sheriff. Any particular reason? Because, I'm ready. I'm going to retire, and I'm going to tell the manager Monday. And that was it. Boom.
Wow.
We had talked back and forth.
Sure.
And I'd always told Sheriff Causey, look, I'm your right-hand man.
Mm-hmm.
I'll stay this for the rest of my career, whatever you decide. And I think he had gone on I can't speak for him, but
right.
We kind of felt like he'd gone on a little vacation and with his wife and family. And I think he just felt like it's time. And so I can't really speak for him, but just
right.
He was very, very supportive. Then he did a crash course on politics for me.
Yeah.
And then we began the whole thing where the party now has to appoint you.
Mm-hmm. And then you're appointed,
Yes.
and then you go in with a couple others and you sell yourself, and the party appoints you. So you're
Yes.
the sheriff, and then you have to run for election.
That was,
I guess it was the next year. So you have to actually start going out and asking people to vote for you.
That I had even when I got through that little I'll call
being
piece
appointed.
of cake
Right.
process,
Mm-hmm.
I thought was devastating to me back then, and got into the real political running a campaign.
Mm-hmm.
My mind was blown at how non-political I was.
What did you learn?
Well, I think for me, I just kept trying to say, look, I am not a politician. I'm playing on words. But in my mind, I was
Mm-hmm.
trying to get myself to come to the grips, well, yes, you are a politician.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't want to be political. When you pick up the phone to call 911, I've never, in almost 30 years, heard of somebody saying, I need an independent, I need a Democrat, they're like, I need help.
Mm-hmm.
I need law enforcement. I need somebody here who's going to help me, who
Mm-hmm.
cares. So that was my mentality. I have desperately tried to be very non-political and to just be everybody's sheriff and do the right thing. So I think for me, I learned that. And I remember Sheriff Causey telling me, don't try to be political. He was born and raised here,
Mm-hmm.
great man, and
Right.
utmost respect for him.
Mm-hmm.
And but he was born and raised here, and he knew I was not. And I remember him telling me, don't try to be political, just do the right thing.
So you've been through now two elections, 2010 and 2014.
Yes, sir.
They have, a couple of times in each one of those elections, they happen to get a little dirty to
Yes,
the
sir.
common conversation.
Yes, sir.
But had you known what was going to happen, would you have done it?
I don't think so. I don't think I would have put my family through that. Now, the Lord knows, and that's why I didn't know. But to see what it did to my family was really sobering to me. And I remember through all of the elections, I've always tried my best never to be dirty, to be mean-spirited, and just always said, look, I want to move forward. This is the direction that the sheriff's office is going. You've seen it. You've seen how I am as your sheriff. You've seen the direction that I'm going.
Mm-hmm.
And what I can promise the people is we're going to keep going that way.
Right.
I've got people that hold me accountable, and we've got policies, things in place. I'm not going to be political. I belong to a party. You have to. And I'm not ashamed of that. But you have got to run the sheriff's office as nonpartisan as you possibly can.
I asked this to Governor Cooper after he was elected, and I asked him. He said because he said he wanted to work with the other side after he was elected, and after that campaign, I asked him. I said, "How do you put some of the stuff that is said in campaigns aside afterwards? Because I don't know if I'd be able to do that. How hard is that, and how do you do that?"
It is extremely hard. I keep telling myself it's bigger than you, Ed. It's bigger than Ed McMahon. It's not about you. If you're going to be the sheriff and you're going to do the right thing, then I've always said I answer before the audience of one, and that's God. And I want to know that I'm doing things for the right reason. People are so passionate about what they believe. And I've just tried to say, as the sheriff, I don't make laws, and I don't interpret laws. I think it would be very difficult if I tried to do anything that was by nature more political. I don't see me being able to do that.
Right.
But I've always just said it's not about me. And now, on the other hand, like my family is looking at me and they're taking like these people are attacking their husband, their dad. But I've always told them, it's just like the haters are going to hate.
Mm-hmm.
They're going to sit there and they're going to drink the poison and they're going to wait for me to fall. Well, guess what? I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to get bitter. I'm not going to drink the poison. I'm just going to keep moving forward. And as long as the Lord's got me here, when I'm done, I want to say I didn't do anything out of vengeance. I did not do what I was supposed to have done for a political reason. And I think it's easier as the sheriff to be able to do that.
Mm-hmm. How difficult has it been on your wife and your two kids? Did they ever tell you to the point where it's like, wow, Dad, or wow, Ed, this is difficult for me?
My wife, I think, has always been kind of like my protector.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll never forget her saying to me, this is worse to me than when you had cancer. And I couldn't even comprehend that. Mm-hmm. But it was so devastating to her that people were talking bad about me, calling me things, And it's bigger when you're in that. It's bigger than what it really is. I think people that are outside and might listen to this say, I didn't know that there was things going on like that. But to her, everything was magnified and amplified.
Sure.
And I forget, like whenever we had the debates or anything like that, that Tina wouldn't go. She's like, she stayed home. I'm just going to stay here and pray.
Right.
And so my son would go with me. Mm-hmm. And I forget one day, I got home and I was trying to change real quick, and he was there, and he got a nosebleed. And I think he was under so much stress and pressure that he just boom got this big, and that's when it really hit me that time. It's like, what am I doing to my family? Mm-hmm. But and I think my daughter, she loved working the poles. I don't know, she was,
right.
And then my son really got into it too. He'd go down there and he'd say, "I'm locking this pole down, Dad," And
Right.
so then they kind of turned it, and they did really good. But it was a lot of pressure, but it was the most pressure on my wife, on Tina.
You mentioned cancer. You're a cancer survivor. What did that do? What was that? I mean, and full disclosure here, everybody knows that my wife Sheila has had breast cancer, and I'm coming at it from the husband's perspective. Yeah. But what is it? What was it like for you?
Well, I think when you
that whole journey.
When you hear that C word,
yeah,
it's like, that can't be me.
Right.
That's somebody else. That's not me. So, it's really initially kind of devastating, but I really think that it's harder for the caretaker. Mm-hmm. Like in your case, I think it's tougher on you, and I think it was tougher on Tina. That's why when she made that statement to me about this is worse than that, that was powerful. And they put you on medications, and you get chemo, and everything's just kind of like a blur.
Yeah.
But you just, for me personally, the Lord just made me stronger through all that. So
yeah, that's that is a testament to somebody's real. Do you think mindset plays as much as the medicine in a cancer journey?
Absolutely. The support system is so strong, because the medications do something to you. I've never been anybody to be moody. I've always been a real, outgoing and real happy. And those medicines that they're giving you, they really mess with your mind as well. So to have, again, the support system to say, no, you can do it, let's go, and just to stay strong. But a lot of it is just staying mentally strong through all that. Absolutely.
What do grandchildren mean to Ed McMahon?
Oh, everything.
You got 6 grandchildren.
6 grandchildren. Our oldest is getting ready to turn 6 on the 31st.
Wow.
So so this weekend we'll have a little birthday party.
Yeah.
And it goes all the way down to, I think, about 9 months. But they are my joy. You forget everything. Children are so innocent. All they want is Papa. They don't, nothing else. They just want your love. They want your time. And grandchildren are awesome.
Did that change? Did having grandchildren, I know having children changed my perspective on a lot of things.
Yes.
But did having grandchildren change your perspective on law enforcement, on school safety, on children's issues or things like that?
It really does. It brings it closer. Anytime it's you And I always try to be very empathetic, very caring, try to put myself in your shoes, so to speak. But when you have those grandbabies and you have one going to the school, to elementary school, and you have them around and you have them out in the neighborhoods, and you have somebody shooting a gun one house down from where your daughter, son-in-law, and babies are, that brings everything really to home. This is my community too. And so absolutely makes it much more personal.
Worst day as sheriff?
Worst day. Probably when my friend and mentor decided to run against me.
Interesting.
Probably be one of my, lowest times.
Right. And that we're talking about Sheriff Causey, and you ended up defeating him in that campaign. And I don't want to go too deep into that, but that was uncomfortable for you?
It was, to me, like I had disappointed my father. My big brother, my father. It's just, so that was, I would say very, so personal to Tina and I. So personal, yeah.
Is there a thought that you take into the office every day? When you walk in that door and you sit down at Ed McMahon's desk, the sheriff of New Hanover County's desk, is there one thought that you have every day?
Every day, I pray for wisdom, discretion, and favor, and that I'll make the right decision for the right reason. That's what my prayer is for me and the sheriff's office every day, that the Lord will give me wisdom, discretion, and favor with the community. Without favor with the community, I'm done.
How has law enforcement changed? You've been in it 30 years now, I guess, or coming up on 30 years?
1988 I started.
Yeah, so coming up on 30 years.
Yes.
How has law enforcement changed? I mean, there are still good guys and bad guys. Yes. But I think now, there's cell phones everywhere, there's body cams, there's dash cams. But fighting crime is still the basic bottom line, is it not?
Hey, bottom line, you want to get the bad guys. You want to keep the community safe. The way we do that has changed, and I don't ever want to change just to change, but I always tell our staff, and I heard this one time, the only constant is change. We have to continually be looking to get better, to hold ourselves accountable, to get the most updated technology with all of the Facebooks and all the social media and all the different things that we have at our fingertips too. That we have to be able to use that to make us better, to make us more efficient. When I was a detective back in the 90s, when you were on call, you got a bag phone. And I'll never forget picking the phone up and calling Tina. Guess what I'm doing? She's like, what are you doing? I'm talking to you on the phone. I've got a bag phone. She's like, hang the phone up and go back to work. But, it's changed now. We have them everywhere. We have some people have multiple phones.
Right.
So I think just keeping up with the technology. But you're right. The bottom line is we need to fight the bad guys. We need to keep this community as safe as possible.
And what doesn't the public know about law enforcement that you wish they did?
I wish that every citizen in New Hanover County could come to our Citizens Academy. Tuesday nights, it's I think 10 weeks long, 3 hours every Tuesday night, and see we are your neighbors. We have children in the schools. We play ball with you. We shop with you, and where you shop, we are you. We are the community. We are dads, moms, grandparents. We are who we're serving. And I think if the community could see the caliber of officers that we have, what they see mostly is the one that makes the mistake, the one that has that problem. That's what they see. So if they could just see everybody else and see how really awesome they are.
Because you've got 300, how many employees in the sheriff's office?
We have 504 full-time employees in the sheriff's office right now.
And so the responsibility to run that department, how daunting is it?
Well, if those are things that keep you, some of the things that keep you up at night.
Sure.
When I realized that one of my main responsibilities is keeping the school children safe. And that's huge. it's like, wow. And I always tell, I tell my friends, I feel like we're always one prayer away from another crisis. Mm-hmm. It could happen. It could happen here. It could happen anywhere. Look at some of the areas these horrible things have happened, and you're like, wow, they can happen there. It can definitely happen in Hanover County. So, stressful job.
But you don't have that many gray hairs, though.
Not yet.
You still have a full head of pretty much dark hair.
Pretty good hair. Yeah, I've been fortunate. And I figured, you know what? Lord's got me here. He's going to give me the strength to do it.
From managing a store to sheriff now and almost 30 years in law enforcement, could you have envisioned that kind of life after you walked out of high school in Massachusetts in the 80s?
I went to a small little church school in Palmer, Massachusetts. I think we had just a couple of us that graduated from my class, a little small kind of a country boy from up north. No, I would have never known that the Lord had this path for me. But I tell you what, I love it, and it is such a privilege and honor to be serving as a sheriff. It's sometimes I have to pinch myself to say, are you sure you're not just dreaming?
Nah, I appreciate you spending the time. Thanks. Ed McMahon's current term as sheriff in New Hanover County ends in 2018. So we'll have to ask him when the calendar turns to the new year, whether he intends to seek a third elected term as sheriff in New Hanover County. He shows no sign of slowing down right now. If you have a suggestion of someone you think would make a good guest for a future episode of One-on-One, send me an email, jevans@wect.com, or reach out to me on Twitter or Facebook. I'm active on those two social media platforms every day. Thanks for joining us for this conversation, One-on-One. I'm John Evans.